Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Trauma Talk Tuesday segment on the topic Unveiling Guilt and Shame with myself, your Freedom Coach, Nataushia Miller, and our guest speaker this evening, Mindset Coach, Cassandra McKissack. All right.
I'm sorry, I have to laugh at that last name. It's like McDonald's,
Right.
McKissack.
Yeah, because it's just the
It's
with
all
the
good.
S's. The S's got my tongue tied. Like, yeah. And then I'm thinking of Cusack, the actors, the Cusacks, and so my mind is like,
Oh,
yeah.
it's
Joanne,
all
and I
good. It's
forget
all
the
good.
guy's name, her brother's name. But yeah. All right. Well, it's good. We started off with some laughter, y'all. Because we're talking about unveiling guilt and shame, and there's no guilt
Woo.
and shame in me pronouncing some words or names incorrectly, okay? Because first off, I don't even believe English is supposed to be my first language anyway, okay? So that's why some of these words is like, blah, 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 blah. I just,
It's
But
all
anyway,
good.
right. So all jokes aside, let's get on into our topic this evening about guilt and shame. Immediately when you share with me your desire to talk about this particular topic, I thought about a show I was watching at one time. I'm one of those type of people that's always learning something from shows or television,
Oh,
movies,
yeah.
whatever it is that I'm watching. And there was this particular scene when the character was in therapy, having a therapy session, and the therapist described the difference between guilt and shame. Shame is when it feels like you're being something wrong, like who you are is wrong. Who you are,
Yes,
your authentic self, is
yes, that's
wrong.
good.
And then guilt is the feeling of doing something wrong. So if you're putting yourself first, you're practicing self-love, then that's wrong.
Yes,
It's guilt. And so I just wanted to open it up and start with there because I just felt like that was so
the mouthful.
simplified, right? Great definition to help us even understand what it is that we're talking about as we go through the steps of unveiling guilt and shame. So share with us why this topic is important to you and one of the first steps to
Sure.
unveiling guilt and shame in our lives, because
Yes,
this can reside in our subconscious mind, and sometimes we
yes,
could be
yes,
operating in guilt and shame and not know it.
yes, yes. Wow. I don't know how you would not know it, but thank you, Coach Nataushia, for inviting me on the show. And I'm sure it's possible to not really know it, I guess, on a deep level. But my name is Cassandra McKissack. I'm also a coach, a mindset coach, and I help coaches and consultants, service providers, and we talk about a lot of these different issues. And I decided to do a little bit more in-depth study. My background is health education and master's in health education and health administration. So I have suffered from this dilemma for a long time. I've gotten better. We all get better. We all experience it from time to time at different levels. And a lot of it has to do with, our environment, our upbringing, our parents, even the level of guilt and shame that they are walking in. So psychologically, it says that shame makes us direct our focus inward, and we view our entire self in a negative light. It must be my fault. I did something, someone could, you could just be walking down the street and then someone goes into a tirade, they're raging, and you take on it. Oh, I must have done something. I probably, just because I was born, he got upset. We're thinking something I did. No, that's an idiot. He's got issues. You didn't do anything, but you take it on. And I know in my own family, I saw my mom model it. She would take responsibility for trying to keep the peace for things that she hadn't even done. And then I got married and I did the same thing. So, we learn how to embrace and embody some of these things. And even as a Christian, we're experiencing shame beyond what God says in the Bible. And you know what? God really dealt with me about our reasonable service. If it's not reasonable, hey, I am not going to be caught up in someone else's psychosis and someone else's madness. And you've got to understand, and I heard T.D. Jakes say this best, people have issues. And it doesn't have anything to do with you. And you've got to realize that sometimes, that it's not you. Don't take that on. Don't do that to yourself. And I just remember, even as a young Christian, when I first got saved, I'd be crying. Oh, Lord, they're upset. They're mad at me. And that's where we go for guilt. Guilt causes us to focus our attention on the feelings of others. Did I upset you, ma'am? Sis, what did I do? I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to upset you, and it had nothing to do with you, but you take it on because it was something that was taught. It was something that you caught and embraced as your own. It took a lot of untangling for me to get out of it. It was like a web. Shame, guilt, it's like a web of thoughts and thinking and processes. And so I had to ask God, change my mind. Help me to understand who I was, even though one of my parents said I wasn't wanted. And it wasn't just me. It was, they said they didn't want to have kids, period. And I'm thinking, wow, how do you do that? How do you have 6 kids and don't want any of them? But that's the problem. And I had to learn that lots of people will choose. And it has nothing to do with me being born. God said I was wonderfully and fearfully made and created. I am special in God's eyes. And God had to really help me to understand and embrace it, and not just something that I read in the Bible, or not just something someone told me, you'll be all right, baby, you'll be all right. I had to understand it for myself and get that I was okay. You remember that book, I'm okay, you're okay. I had to really learn that for myself. Right. It can be a difficult place, a difficult thing to really comprehend. And I've met so many women who have embraced that, oh, it's me, woe is me. And God's like, he said, take my yoke and learn of me. That ain't me. All that's not me. This is me. This is what this word says. This is what I am to embrace. I don't want you to have issues, but if you must, you must. I'll pray for you, but baby, I'm gonna keep it moving. I'm gonna keep my freedom.
Right.
The name of your I love your coach's name, Freedom Coach, and it reminds me of a time I went to court because of a ticket. And anyway, the judge ended up throwing it out. He said, you can go free now. You can go free. And sometimes that's what someone needs to give someone permission. You can go free now. If that's you in shame and guilt, and you've taken on all these burdens. That's what my pastor's wife told me when I was in college. She said, you've taken on all of these burdens. That's why you feel so weighed down. That's why you feel like you got a monkey on your back, because you've taken on all these things because you thought you were supposed to. I didn't die for nobody's sins. That was not my thing to do or embrace. Yes, I'm staying free. Thank you very much. I am free. Not that I can get freer, but we all can go there, right? We all can be free. And so, that's why I love this topic. And even while going through college, I was so glad that I majored in health, because one of my instructors specifically talked about mental health issues. And that man helped me so much. I mean, I used to feel like I was coming to hear a sermon when I would come in his classroom. This man wasn't even thinking about Jesus. I mean, he cussed a little bit and he talked a little bit, and he talked about having his drink. But God used him to speak words of life that I needed to hear, because they weren't talking about these kinds of things in my church. Maybe they talk about it in your church, but they weren't talking about how you can be free mentally and what is going on, the psychosis behind a lot of these things. My family wasn't talking about this. This was all new information for me. And so I praise God for the opportunity to help set others free. That's exciting. So I know that's exciting for you, Coach. Freedom Coach.
Yes. I love it. So a lot of good stuff. A few points that I really wanted to point out. I love the fact that you called the concept of guilt and shame as a dilemma, because it is. I mean, it's totally dilemma, and dilemma is a noun. So subconscious, this can become a state of being. That's what we're doing, reconstructing our state of being. We're dismantling this guilt and shame, this dilemma, and then we're reconstructing, we're realigning ourselves with the mind of God to rewrite that whole narrative. And so it's a situation requiring a choice between equally undesirable alternatives. I just felt it was so important that we understand the definition of dilemma, because those are equally undesirable alternatives. We don't want to be in guilt and we don't want to be in shame. Neither one of them is a form of freedom. They're both bondage. So I love that you had stated it as that. Another thing that I heard you say is how guilt and shame, this dilemma of guilt and shame, can be generational. And how it's it can go from generation to generation if the generation before us is carrying that, and then they're projecting that onto us as well. And then one last thing that really stood out to me as you were really sharing with us the difference of what shame is versus guilt, how shame is internalized. It's a negative perspective of self. And then guilt is like your intention of how you navigate, how you operate based on the feelings of others. And so it reminds me of indirect trauma. And when you're saying don't take on other people's issues, like that's basically what we're doing. We're taking on the effects in the residue of vicarious trauma, the traumas that others have, the residue that they're carrying, and we're taking it on as our own traumas and our own residue. And unaware and, obliviously. A lot of times we're not even aware that we have that. But then once you come to the other side, and this is where I'm going to get to my question. Once God brings you out of this dilemma of guilt and shame, you actually come to see how your sensitivity to the traumas and residues of others is how your natural spiritual gifts work. It's really how you serve. And so it was like the enemy was attacking that area that makes you valuable to the body of Christ. So share with us how you transition, like how life began to be different for you and how more effective and, just being a woman of God in the various roles that you play and operate in and function, and how you were able to just kind of like reverse that whole concept and dynamic to where you're empowering others as well as maintaining empowerment for yourself.
Yes. Well, just to tell you a little bit, I'll answer that. But shame, some of the ways shame manifests itself is a person will hide their eyes, they lower their eyes, they may be fidgety, smile a lot, even though they're not happy, but they're putting on a happy face because they're performing. And I want to just say performing because I do smile a lot. I feel like that is who I am. But sometimes I was smiling when the occasion didn't call for it. And some of that is because when you're sometimes in a difficult situation, sometimes you have to do things, flip the script to have a certain impact if you're dealing with someone that's volatile, especially volatile. And so, for me, it has been a process a process of time. And I get so tickled because people now tell me, oh, you're so strong, you're so powerful. I have to laugh because, I do see that side of me, but I didn't realize that God wanted to use me to be a leader. I was thinking the last thing He wanted to do with my life because I was such a good follower. I love being someone else's cheerleader and cheering them on and saying, whoop, whoop, come on, let's do it, let's do it. And then when I started getting prophecies that God's making you a general, He's making you the one. Actually, an admiral, I guess they said you were a general. He's making you an admiral so that you can stand before many and you can hear the word of the Lord and you will be the one that others are looking up to. And I was amazed because I said, God, you done did something, because y'all don't know, I would cry in a heartbeat. If something wrong to me, I didn't confront it. I didn't deal with it. And I remember one instance that really stands out. I remember I was at a church, a lovely church, sat on the praise team, and God had opened up the door for me to go to Oral Roberts University, something that I never thought that I would be able to do. Didn't think I was smart enough, whatever. And God opens up this door. And I remember, you know how you're happy, you're sharing with the leadership at the church, and I'm sharing with the co-pastor, telling him that, you know, I'm getting ready to go to ORU. Can you believe this miracle? Oh my God. You know, and he looks at me and he says, you don't need to go nowhere. You can stay right here. I looked at him. I'm like, what? Honey, I'm running to the bathroom and I'm crying. God said, wipe up those tears and you go back out there and you tell him you offended me. You offended me, and tell me why. And so I said, you know what? I was just sharing something from the bottom of my heart that I never thought I would do. I said, you really hurt my feelings. I was sharing something, you know, even if you weren't glad for me, did you have to say that? And you know what he told me? He said, I was just mad because you got to go and I can't go. I said, what? He said, yeah, I want you to go. So a lot of times when people are offensive and say screwy, crazy things to you, it's out of their own issues.
Yes.
When you should truly congratulate someone for some accomplishment, and you're going to rain on their parade. And recently I read a little signage that Brad Pitt wrote. He says, you know, you always think people are going to be happy with you when you go to the next level and you do the next thing and the next thing. He said, people really aren't happy for you. He said, that's why, you know, if you come to my page, I'm sharing a joke or I'm saying something about the weather or the news. He says, I don't even talk about me anymore. He says, all I do is just share just trivial things because people don't want to hear. You know, even though he came from a farm. He was a farm boy. Came to Hollywood, didn't know anybody, but God honored his faith. He went out. He made it big. I mean, look at Steve Harvey. Same thing. He was slept in his car for years, but he had the faith to believe that he could do more. He could be more. I had faith to believe that I could do more and be more. But, you know, sometimes I would be really quiet with it. And then I'd, you know, come out and I'd be doing this. And then people were like, what? How you do that? What's going on? I'm like, it's God. It's God. It's his goodness and his grace. And so I just really want to let you understand that coming out of it is kind of like the imposter syndrome. You come out a little bit at a time, because a lot of times when you deal with guilt and shame, you feel like an imposter. You know, who am I to think that I could go to Oral Roberts University? Who am I to think that I could take, I don't know, for instance, become an actor, you know, go to Hollywood? Who am I to think that I can do these great and marvelous things? Who am I to think that I can go around the world and preach the gospel? Who am I to think those kinds of things, except God put it in my heart to do it? And he honors faith. Thank goodness he honors faith. Because, honey, some folks don't care how much faith you got. They just don't want to see you do it. So you just got to learn how to let God help you create a circle of friends. And sometimes even certain family members, you can't tell all your family members your stuff either. Sometimes they're gonna be like Joseph. They were to Joseph, and again, rain on your parade. So you have to learn, how to do it. And a lot of times I took classes. I've taken some counseling classes. Sometimes I would be around my friends who were professionals, would give me information to help me. YouTube University is a great place to go. A lot of information. Personal development. I was always trying to improve myself, always trying to be better than I was before, not trying to impress anybody. I just needed help. I knew I needed help. So I did all I could to help me be the best person that I could be. And of course, kneeology always works, y'all. Okay. On your knees, before the Father, praying, crying out to God, all of that. You need all of that,
I love it. I love it. YouTube University. Neology, y'all. Yes, indeed. Okay. Welcome to our those of you who are chiming into our live broadcast. I saw a couple of our Freedom from Trauma International community members. Shout out to Mr. Calvin and Miss Lucy. Hey. And so that was a whole mouthpiece. So basically, what Cassandra just finished sharing with us is the process of coming out of the dilemma of guilt and shame, and how as you're coming out, because shame and guilt, it teaches you to hide and to perform for others, because it's hindering your ability to process your emotions and communicate that. So that's a key component once you come out, is that now with the example that she gave, she was able to process her emotions and then go back and actually confront the person with communicating how she felt when they said X, Y, and Z. And so it really helps us to stand up for ourselves and have boundaries for ourselves, and really preserve ourselves as we continue to seek ways into becoming a better version of ourselves. And it's not to impress others, but it's to kill the whispers of the imposter syndrome that tries to tell us that we're doing wrong and we're being wrong by pursuing the freedom that's due to us as sons and daughters of the King. Okay. Hey now, because it's the pursuit. Now, when Jesus said, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly, freedom is a part of that abundance, but the word may or might, depending on the translation, that indicates that there's a prerequisite. That abundant life is not a guarantee. It's a possibility. It's a promise. And so there's a prerequisite to obtaining that abundance, and one of them is to pursue it. That is a prerequisite. And it is our birthright to pursue that abundant life. And one more thing that you said when you were saying how you love to be the cheerleader, and you didn't realize God was calling you to the forefront to be a leader. Immediately I saw the biblical days of old, and how in some instances that was one of the strategies when they were going to war, was to have the praise and worship leaders at the forefront.
That's good.
Battle.
That's good.
At the forefront. So if we have a genuine heart, and you have a pure heart to see others win, we're cheerleaders. We're the ones that do all these things in the backstage to make sure everyone that's on the front stage is shining. There will be a season when God is bringing you to the front stage, because you got to be on the front line. It's an indicator that you've been dwelling in the most holy place with Him. for you to even have a heart to serve in that capacity for
Wow.
others to shine bright in their brilliance. So there will be a season where
Wow.
there's a switcheroo because God knows that he can trust you. Amen.
That's
Glory be to
good.
God.
That's
And when you're
good.
switching, you come into the front lines because you are equipped to advocate and fight for those who are
Wow.
coming behind you. Come on
Woo.
now,
Now
somebody.
you
You
can preach the whole message. Somebody back off and play.
Yes. That's what I saw when you said that.
You know what? And that's so funny you should say that because I loved being God's cheerleader. I loved the praise, the worship on my face before the Lord. I wasn't worried about being at the front because I felt like I'm being an example by worshiping with all my heart, by falling on my feet before the Lord. If that's where he was leading me, I thought if I could be the best example to people, because sometimes you don't see that example when you're looking at people in the pulpit, sometimes they, just like people in the seats can be, sedity or what all that. But, I just knew that I was so glad to, his praises that he called me to be able to elevate him in that way. That was such a privilege. And now to wear this other hat, it's just a new hat, I mean, for years, I didn't feel like I could be a leader because, who do you think you are? You get those voices that say that because I hate to say it, sometimes people just hate to see you grow and go to the next level and do the next thing. Well, we're supposed to be doing the next thing and the next thing. Just like we're in school, we have graduation, 6th grade graduation, 9th grade, 12th grade, college degree, master's, doctorate, and beyond. We should be expected to graduate. We should be expected to go to the next level. What's happened is some people have, and I think it comes out of religion. If you had all these degrees, I had an uncle that told me this once. He said, "Don't get that PhD. A lot of them people are crazy." I thought they were probably already crazy on the way to get to it.
I didn't start when they got that PhD.
I could not believe that my uncle really thought that I, was headed to I started to cry. I'm like, what? Oh my God. The thinking that people have. It's amazing sometimes. You're like, did I just hear those words come out of your mouth? My uncle that I love so dearly.
Did you just hear those words come out of your mouth? Did you just hear what you said?
It's like, what is between the 2 ears? For real. Like, hello, But, it's just the way people are. Sometimes people have these expectations of what they think that a godly woman is or isn't, but it's like, have you read the Proverbs 31 woman? She was making bank, baby. She had it going home. She wasn't just sitting home with the kids all the time. Our goals and expectations are evolving. They're changing. And I see why sometimes you do need to change friends because the friends you had at one time, they don't want to see you go up because I think it's uncomfortable for them because it means that, well, hey, I need to be doing something.
Yeah, it puts a demand on their growth. And they don't want to grow.
Right. You've got to want to grow, pivot, evolve. And, I'm not saying any of this was easy. When I trained to get my master's degree, oh my God, it was like, will I ever get through this? When you're training for the next level, it can seem difficult. It can seem like, will I ever get through this?
Right. Yes, indeed. With commitment and consistency with your pursuit, you can get through anything with the help of the Lord, with the strength of the Lord. I love it. So we are going to, we're coming to our end. We're going to close. So as we close, mindset coach Cassandra, please share with us your final thought about Unveiling Guilt and Shame is just really conquering this dilemma, as well as all of your social media and stuff, and where people can find you and follow you and connect with you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Coach Freedom. It's been an honor and a blessing, and to meet everyone in the audience. Thank you, guys. You've been great making your comments. I appreciate it. I do want to mention this statement by James Baldwin that I just happened to see today. And I thought this is so important because this is part of that guilt and shame syndrome. It says to be a Black male in America is to live in a place of suppressed rage. Suppressed rage, when you're filled with guilt, when you're filled with shame. Yes. Not that it's just that a man feels that, but he was specifically talking about Black men, that they live in a place of suppressed rage. And I'm mentioning this specifically because my father, he's gone on to be with the Lord now, and he finally gave his life to the Lord. But he was a man that was full of rage, and we were afraid as children. We knew Daddy was coming home. I'd go hide under the bed. Some of us get in the closet because he was a rageaholic. He didn't drink, he didn't smoke, he didn't do crack, but his drug of choice was rage, yelling and screaming and beating us. And that was just really, I think it was his coping mechanism. And I think that I finally discovered, you know, my dad was a good guy. He was doing the best that he knew how. He came out of a very rigid religious family, and he rejected religion for years. And I got saved, and I kept saying, Daddy, you got to find out about relationship. And he'd say, you can't tell me nothing. I know how these people are. And so he had to get over all that and forgive them, which is not an easy process for any of us. Right. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that when you know someone that is full of rage, pray for them. Maybe even when they're in a calm state, help them to understand it's the guilt that's been put on them. It's the shame. They've taken it on. And we as children, we pick that up. And then I ended up marrying a man like my daddy. And he was a preacher, right? Full of rage, full of anger. And God finally, you know, dealt with some of that, and some of it, you know, it's a process for all of us. But I just encourage all of you that God is a good God, that he loves you. He cares for you. Stay in your word. You will find out the truth, and the truth shall set you free. That's what his word says. And I'm sticking to it. And you can find me, of course, on Facebook, Cassandra McKissack. And then I have another Facebook page called Cassandra Speaks. And on that platform, I'm specifically speaking. And I'm going to have to invite you to come on, and Coach Freedom.
Yay! All right now.
Well, it's in our calendars. I meant to mention that to you before. And on Instagram, Cassandra McKissack. And hopefully we'll start YouTube. I'm going to working on getting that started in the fall, but I'm trying to get good at one platform right now, and it's Facebook, because that's where I do a lot of my coaching and consulting right here. And so, yeah, if you guys want to look me up, I'd love to get to know you better. And if I can offer you some encouragement or some training, I would be happy to do that. And I'm so glad that God chose me to do this, but I had to go through it, come out on the other side to be able to help others. So praise God.
Yes. Go through it.
Yes.
Go through it. Pursue the process. Go through it so you could come out on the other side better than before. Equipped and ready to help others without losing sight of yourself. Okay.
That part.
Let the church say amen. All right. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much, Ms. Cassandra, for joining us. Thank you to those of you who caught the live broadcast, and to those of you who catch the replay. This is your Freedom Coach, Nataushia Miller, and Mindset Coach, Cassandra McKissack, signing off until next time. Peace and freedom, everyone.
Happy freedom.